Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be doing yet another episode of Wishful Thinking, a series of videos where I talk about game ideas that I wish were real. So like I always say, that obviously all this stuff is just shit that I'm just making up off the top of my head. I don't have any inside sources that this is actually happening, even though I really wish I did. But anyways, this episode is going to be on franchises that I wish got the Yakuza treatment. I've talked about it quite a lot on my channel, so I won't repeat everything about it here, but I will just say that I've been a fan of the series for quite a long time, even before, like, the breakout hit with Yakuza 0. And there's so many things that I love about the games, like the fact that it's like, it kind of feels like an open world game, but at the same time it's like condensed enough that it doesn't feel overwhelming. And I love the fact that the main storylines are like really great and well written, while also the side quests of the game are like very like silly and ridiculous and are just highly entertaining. So it kind of gives you the best of both, where you have like a serious story, but then you also have some unserious shit that's just balls out crazy. And ever since they did a tie-in with Fist of the North Star with Lost Paradise, which was a game that I highly enjoyed, not only because I'm a fan of Yakuza, but I'm also a fan of the Fist of the North Star series. And then it got me thinking about, what if they wanted to do like other tie-ins with other franchises to be incorporated into this like gameplay style. There's actually quite a few I thought about that I think would be really awesome if they were to do it. So let's get started. So the first one I came up with is pretty obvious, given that I've actually heard other people mention this idea before, and that happens to be Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. So I think you know where I'm going with this, where both the Yakuza and the Jojo series are like manly as fuck, and they both have their moments where they can be really like over the top and ridiculous. So naturally, it's a perfect fit, and given how Jojo is like really popular these days, I can see it happening, and it's probably the only one on this list that might actually get made. But whenever the day comes though, I'll definitely buy it day one. But before we move on to the next one, the one thing that I think that we should say with Jojo is that, what part would they base it after? Well, for me personally, I think they should probably do part 3, not just because it's my favorite, but also because it is one of the most iconic ones in the series. And what should they do with the story? Should they take it like exactly like how it is in the manga, or should they do like elements from the manga but then have like their own spin with it and possibly adding in like new characters and such? Similar to what they did with Fist of the North Star, where they had elements from like the original story, but then they had like their own spin with it, with the whole Paradise City where like the villain characters will sometimes try to invade it. Well, you had original characters that were made for the game itself. And whether which one we get, I'd be pretty okay with both, as long as the original one was actually still done right. So now, moving on to the next one, and this is another series that's also manly as fuck, but unfortunately, it's not nearly as well known or as popular as Jojo, but I would like to think it would be awesome if they ever did get another game made out of it, and that happens to be Sakaki Okikojuku. For anyone that doesn't know, this is a really great anime series that I thought was a lot of fun, though unfortunately it did feel a little bit rushed towards the end, but despite of that though, I still thought it was worth watching and a lot of damn fun. I never reviewed it on my channel yet, but I figured I might as well mention that I really like it. And in case you never heard of it or don't know much about it, basically this series is all about like this guy going to like a school that's just full of like manliness and testosterone, and they just have to survive every single like day doing different things, and of course all the things that they do are like really over the top, and of course the other characters are all like a bunch of delinquents that get into a lot of shit. That's the easiest way to sum it up. So yeah, this is another concept that I think would fit really well with the Yakuza style, where, you know, you just get to do like a lot of like random shit that's just really funny and amusing, but you also get to beat up a bunch of random goons. Plus there's a huge rivalry between like different schools and whatnot, so you know this story is going to be kind of similar to the actual stories within the Yakuza games, but, you know, replace like different like families of Yakuza members with, you know, different schools. But as amazing as this would be if it were to happen though, the only unfortunate thing is that for the character Heihachi, probably one of the most badass characters in the series, well, unfortunately, his voice actor passed away a few years ago, which I think would be really hard to try to like recapture that. And speaking of which, ironically, he also happened to do the voice for old Joseph Joestar, so, you know, he's the one that does the whole "Oh my god!" So yeah, he's pretty legendary for that. So anyways, with that said, It would totally be awesome if we ever were to get a Yakuza-style game based after this anime series. And also, we're pretty long overdue, because the last one that I can remember being made was on the PS3. But I suppose I should also give some bonus credit for J All-Stars for including Momo into that game. And next on my list is another anime, and it's also one that hasn't had that many games made out of it. And it's also one that was actually pretty popular back then, and that happens to be Rurouni Kenshin. Yeah, so this one would be more like a samurai game. In fact, the Yakuza games have actually done a samurai-style game before, being Yakuza Ishin, which I'm really hoping we'll get a remaster of that someday that's localized over here. But if not, then we could possibly maybe get a Rurouni Kenshin game made out of it. I think the concept would work pretty well with this. So Kenshin himself does kind of remind me of Kiryu in the sense that they both don't like killing people. And they both have that mix of, like, they can be really deadly serious, but then they can also be, like, kind of carefree and goofy when they want to be. And since Kenshin does use a sword and not his fists, then, well, you know, this game's gonna have more swordplay within it, which I think would be kind of refreshing for this style of game. And I'm sure this game would borrow some assets from the Ishin games, but of course, since I haven't played them, I can't really go into detail about that. But I'm sure if it were, though, it probably might, like, expand upon certain things about it, and I think that would be pretty damn awesome. So I wish I can say more on this, but even just with this alone, though, would get me excited enough. And the next one we got here is one that I think could happen, given that this is also a Sega property, so, you know, there's no licensing issues I gotta mess with, but the thing is that it's kind of a dead franchise, so I don't know what they could do with it, but I think it would be a good way for them to revive it, and that would be Golden Axe. Like, imagine, like, a 3D, like, semi-open world, like, beat-em-up with where you're just playing as, like, the three main characters from, like, the Golden Axe series, and it also has, like, you know, like, that whole, like, medieval setting. I think that would be pretty cool. They can come up with, like, an original story for it that maybe pays tribute to, like, the original ones. And it might be a good way for them to bring back the series again into the light, because, you know, they haven't done shit with it since, like, what, like, Beast Rider? And, I mean, do we really want that to be the last game in the Golden Axe series? So I think this would be a pretty interesting one if they were to do it. So the next one we got is another anime-based one, and this is one that's also, like, a really popular series, and it's also one that didn't really get a lot of games made out of it, weirdly enough, and that happens to be Cowboy Bebop. I think this one would be perfect for the fact that it has, like, a ton of action. In fact, I find that Spike's character design does sort of remind me of the one from Ichiban from Like a Dragon. Just a funny coincidence right there. And the concept of them being bounty hunters, I think just would be a pretty dope idea. And the fact that you get to do, like, space travel and get to go to, like, different planets and cities and whatnot, like, the game would be pretty massive. And given that the shenanigans that all the characters get into, it would make for some pretty good side content. But yeah, back to what I said about, like, the Cowboy Bebop games, the last one that we ever got was on PS2, and it was only in Japan. In fact, all the Cowboy Bebop games were only in Japan, which is kind of weird because the series was always more popular in the West than it was in Japan, so it's one of those things that just always didn't make the most sense to me, but oh well. Well, like I said, maybe they'll do another game base after it, and I think this one with the Yakuza style would be fucking perfect. And the next one we got is one that I think you guys probably might get a laugh at, but I mean, hey, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, honestly, and that happens to be Sailor Moon. Yeah, I said it. So, as again, it's another series that hasn't had a game made out of it in a long time, and given with all the different, like, iterations that they've done recent years with, like, the redubs and, like, you know, with Crystal and, you know, all that kind of fun stuff, I'm kind of surprised they haven't tried to make another game made out of it. But I do think if they ever were to make a 3D beat-em-up with the Yakuza style, I think it would be pretty fun, I'm not gonna lie. You know, just running around, beating up random monsters that are invading Tokyo. And maybe just for some uniqueness, maybe they can find a way to play as, like, all, like, the other Sailor Scout characters. Like, you know how in Yakuza 0 you have, like, the different, like, play styles that you can do? Well, maybe instead of that, you can, like, literally transform into, like, the other ones or something. I don't know. But they could definitely utilize a way that you can play as, like, different characters, and they have, like, different movesets and whatnot. I think that would be pretty dope. Or if they really wanted to, they can also make it like a Dragon, where it's like an RPG, and you have, like, the crazy summons and whatnot. given that Sailor Moon has done an RPG before on the SNES, I think it could work in today's standards, but yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on that. I'm pretty sure you guys don't want me to go on too long about Sailor Moon, but yeah, I mean, I'd probably buy it. Alright, and as for the last one I'm going to be mentioning here, this is one that unfortunately I don't see happening because of the way how Nintendo is and how protective they are of their IPs and shit. But then again, they ain't done shit with this franchise in like fucking years, and that happens to be FZero. So what's ironic about this is that the team that made FZero GX was actually the Yakuza team, so that right there is fantastic, and nothing needs to be changed there. But what I think they should do with the next FZero game is that they should still keep the cups, you know, like trying to get like the most points out of coming out of first place and whatnot. They should still keep that, but when it comes to the story mode, that is where I think they should make like the 3D beat 'em up where you use Captain Falcon and you get to punch the shit out of like random dudes. And you know, they can have like a crazy story out of it, kind of like something out of like Fast and Furious, which I know is basically like the story from FZero GX, but you know, make it even more over the top in manliness, of course. And then you have like the main story missions of the game are like the racing section, so you basically are getting like a racing game meets like a 3D beat 'em up, and maybe some like other mini games like thrown in there for good measure. So it would be a good way to give you a lot of variety and without doing too much of the same thing. And I personally think this would be a great way to elevate the series, because that's the problem with Nintendo, and the reason why they haven't made a F-Zero game in so long is because of the fact that they claim that they just have to elevate like everything like every single time they make a new game. So yeah, you know what, I think this elevates it enough, and hell, just for good measure they can also throw in a track creator, and there you go. There's your idea, Nintendo, but I know you won't listen to me because I'm not some guy that lives in Japan working for you. And that's the last idea I have for this video. Well, actually I lied, there is one more idea, but it's just for shits and giggles because I know for a fact it would never happen, and that happens to be a Yakuza style game based after Mad Bull 34. For anyone out there that has no idea what I'm talking about, it's an old anime OVA that was just balls out crazy to the point where like it was actually like really offensive. In fact, I don't think it would fly in today's standards, which is why I don't think a game would ever get made out of it today. But it would be fucking hilarious if it ever did, though. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that for shits and giggles. But anyways, though, that's all the ideas I have for games getting the Yakuza treatment that I would love to play one day if they ever were to happen. So any of these ideas sound like something you would like to play, or do you have other franchises that you think would make for a great fit? So anyways, let me know what you think. So thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.